All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm your host, Patrick Moore, affectionately known as Mad Moore in Silicon Valley, for various reasons that I will not get into tonight, unless we have alcoholic beverages, which we don't. This is our first actual episode of Founders Tales. And so the idea behind Founders Tales is basically to bring founders with real experience who have made very interesting transitions from their lives, their past lives, whether that be corporate or other lives, other startups, and to really kind of like dig down and dig deep and understand what are some of the issues that these people have faced, how have they solved some of these issues, and touch on things that are business related, obviously, funding and finance related, hiring and resource related, and even here and there, some personal issues and anecdotes, right? So what we're really trying to do with Founders Tales is bring a kind of like more raw, more genuine, and more real perspective to what it's like to be a founder. And obviously, as we'll hear from Satya tonight, there's some amazing and great things about being a founder. There are also a lot of challenges. There are a lot of risks involved. There are a lot of difficulties involved. But it should be a very interesting session. So myself, as you may or may not know, I was at Google for a couple of years, ran marketing for the Play Store there. I've been in a number of different startups myself, including GetJar and Glue and a number of others. And currently, kind of like my passion is essentially to help people lead powerful and exciting lives. So I've become kind of an executive coach and work with founders across the board, which is really rewarding and satisfying. But we're not here to talk about me tonight. We're here to talk about Satya, about Zently, and about his adventures. So Satya, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, and tell us a little bit about Zently as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Satya. I've been in the Valley for a little over a decade now. Started out my career as an engineer, similar to the path of a lot of other people that come here. Went to business school, actually the same business school that Patrick went to, which is kind of our connection. And then decided to come back to the Valley and basically start a career in product. And through many of those experiences really was, trying to explore my passion, trying to see, find the things that I really cared about. About 5 years ago, I ended up at LinkedIn, 3 years running LinkedIn Jobs, which is a great place to be. It was one of those times in the Valley when a company is just completely going through a period of hypergrowth, and it was a great time to be there. 2 years I spent on the LinkedIn profile team as well. So again, one of the great products on the internet. It was definitely an honor to be a part of that team. But through all of those experiences, I knew that I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship. There was just a sequence of events that happened in my life that sort of drove me towards this path. Through all the years that I'd lived in the Valley, I had rented, obviously, the market in the Valley. You've written a few blog posts about it. I had a lot of frustrations through all of those years that I lived here. And then a few years ago, I sort of found myself in a very awkward situation of being this accidental landlord. Suddenly now I was renting a property out to somebody else. And the number of mistakes that I made, I could write a book about, so I'm not going to get into all of them. But that sort of got me excited about, hey, real estate is an interesting space. It just is one of those spaces where technology hasn't really made a huge difference. And so I started thinking a lot about, what are some of the changes that we could make in that industry? How do you change the way that people live? And so that was sort of the inspiration for exploring the space and really getting into it. And that's why, Zently was born. Started out with a very simple thesis, which was, renting is really becoming the way that people live. You may have heard that millennials don't like to buy anything. Houses are actually included in that list. And so I saw this trend, which was, that renting is becoming the way that most Americans are living. And if you look at the top 100 cities in the U.S., more than half of them are now dominated by renters. Wow. And so that was something that inspired me to look at bringing some of the consumer product knowledge that I'd gained over the years to that space. And that's kind of how we got started.
Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about, the transition from, LinkedIn to startup founder, right? Because obviously, you were at LinkedIn, how many years? 4 or 5 years?
5 years.
5 years, and you were leading a relatively large sized team. doing pretty well. You know, you mentioned in one of our conversations previously that, you know, you had interactions with very senior people in the company, or, you know, relatively well known and well respected by folks like Jeff Weiner and others. You know, I mean, leaving all that behind and taking the plunge, I mean, kind of, what was your thought process as you decided to make that change? Kind of like, why such a strong drive to becoming an entrepreneur as opposed to, you know, pursuing what had been a very successful career up to that point in LinkedIn?
You know, I had a personal situation happen where my father passed away. He was running a pretty large business. You know, he had 60 employees. And, you know, suddenly I was faced with a situation where, you know, one morning I'm driving down 101, I turn around, get to the airport, and I fly down there, and my life is completely different now. Suddenly, for me, it was a realization that, you know, I've waited a long time to pursue some of my entrepreneurial ideas, some of the things that I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'm faced with this situation where I realize now that life is incredibly short, right? And at the same time, you know, I had to spend about a month in India trying to wind down his business. And at that time, I realized that, hey, I need to take this shot. I need to pursue something now.
So from what you're saying, his passing was unexpected?
Yeah, it was completely unexpected.
Right.
And yeah, it made me realize that, you know, if I want to do something, I'm just going to have to pursue it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing like those moments in life that really kind of, like, you know, open our eyes and make us think that life is short. Right.
Absolutely.
And so from there, you started to have this realization that you needed to start tackling your entrepreneurial dreams. What was your process, and how did you go about convince your wife that this was the right thing to leave LinkedIn and do this?
Yeah. I mean, she was very supportive. You know, I was surprised at the amount of support that I got, because you know, she knew that, she obviously, through all the years that she had known me, she knew that, you know, that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and that was something that was really important to me. And you know, at the same time, she wanted to put some constraints on you know, what level of craziness we could tolerate.
Right.
And so, you know, like any business school trained, you know, sort of, you know, someone trained through a business program,
Yeah.
I sat down and I wrote up a contract.
Did you really?
I did, yeah. On, you know, how much time would I get to, you know, to do this?
So you had a runway.
Before, you know, I could pay myself.
Okay.
One. That was, you know, something that was negotiated. Came out to an even 12 months.
Okay.
Two was, you know, what were the signals that I would have to see
Yeah.
to continue doing it, right?
Right.
In terms of, hey, if I'm 1 year into this process and I'm still the only guy sitting at a desk and, you know, sort of pounding away at a keyboard, maybe that's not the right, you know, that's not the right path to pursue.
Yeah.
And then the last was, you know, I would actually have something like a product or something out there that I could get feedback on, right?
Yeah.
So those were sort of the, you know, things that we put down.
So your wife was like chairman of the board. I mean, she set the milestones for you.
My current board members don't know that, but yeah, that's absolutely.
We all know where the power lies in this household, guys. All right.
That's right.
How do you go about planning for becoming an entrepreneur financially, right? So you're in this situation where you're in a steady job, you're in a big company, you're doing well, you've got, you know, the kind of the income coming in every month, like clockwork, and the bonus at the end of the year, and some options.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for that financially? I mean, is it kind of, I'd love to know the thought process that you went through.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually plenty of blog posts about this subject, about, you know, sort of like 12 to 18 months. Sometimes people say 2 years worth of expenses in the bank. You know, to be honest, the way that I looked at it was, you know, one, if I'm serious about doing this in a way that doesn't result in my family having a, you know, massively negative impact, right? Like, for example, if it's a serious situation where you suddenly lose your home, that's something that I don't obviously want to bring on my family, right? So for me, it was really about, you know, if I have 1 year saved up, right? My wife obviously is working at a full-time job. Having kids in the Bay Area, anybody that has done that knows it's incredibly expensive.
Yep.
So all those factors were plugged in, and you know, that's sort of how we came up with the 1 year number, which is I can, you know, that's what I'm willing to do.
Right.
Right.
So
And
you were willing to kind of like burn through 1 year of lost salary, as long as by the end of that year you had hit certain milestones and
That's right.
you had some sort of a salary coming in.
That's right. That's right. And I followed that plan to a T. And
Have you
yes.
drawn your first salary yet?
I have, yeah. So so I had put aside a certain amount of capital to start the company out, because obviously anybody that has raised money knows that it's an incredibly competitive and difficult thing to do. And I had set certain milestones in terms of what we needed to be able to do. We were lucky enough that there were amazing investors that believed in us, and within 3 months of starting the company, we had our first check-in. And it turned out to be from people that I'd worked with before. Some of them were incredibly generous, and so we blew through some of the milestones that we had set at that point. But yeah, I mean, effectively, if it hadn't been done in a year, I would have had to have a very difficult conversation with my wife.
When you thought of those, one or two potential co-founders or very early members of the team, what was your thought process in terms of what kind of co-founder you wanted? Both, not in terms of just skill sets and abilities, but also in terms of kind of like your ability to work with them, their ability to kind of like complement your weaknesses and vice versa. Talk to us a little bit about that process and what was that like?
Yeah, so I definitely did want to work with someone that I worked with before, and that happened in my case. Alex, who's my co-founder, we used to work together. He was on the Profile team as well, so we had some interactions while I was there. At the same time, I have to say that going from a company that has 10,000 people to a company in the beginning which has 2 to 4 people, that's a completely different beast. And so there's a period where we had to get sort of our work styles had to mesh together, and so there's this period of like really trying to understand what your work style is like, getting adjusted to that, understanding what's important to the co-founder, understanding what's important to you, and then trying to make it work, right? So that definitely happened in our case, and we survived that. He's actually sitting in the audience right now. So.
When you look at the last 12 months, is there anything that you look back and you say, I wish I would have done that differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, no, because all of the mistakes that we've made have informed better decisions going forward. Just to give you one example, we built a pretty sophisticated product for an MVP. We built this amazing product that automatically split the bills that between roommates and automatically deducted whatever they owed each other from their rent payment. And we were so proud of this amazing complex system that we built. Well, it turns out that users want a very fixed payment to be their rent payment, right? And we didn't realize that in the beginning. It was something that sort of came through the process of iteration, of getting a product out there, of getting it hands of real users and seeing what they do with it. And that has informed better decisions down the road. Now, obviously, you need to be very fast at reacting to what's actually happening, based on data and other things that are happening in the field with your product. But that was something we were trained to do in our past lives, so we did pretty well there.